Hi, everyone, and welcome to part three. And what we're going to be looking at here as we look at personal narrative performance is how are we going to move from planning an interview to creating a narrative performance for other people. And we're going to do that in 5 steps. Okay. So I want to talk to you about the steps in narrative analysis, and that's attending, telling, transcribing, analyzing, and reading. And don't worry if I went through that a little quickly because we're going to go through them. Attending. The interview must first attend to their experience. They need to know what you're going to talk about. So you're not going to go up to a person and say, I want to know what it's like to live through your body. They're going to be like, what? What you might say is, I'm interested to know what it's like to be a woman that works in an industry with very few other women, right? So give them time to think about the stories they're going to tell you because that helps them remember. You don't want to catch them by surprise. What is this interview about? I'm interested in your story of being a gay man. I'm interested in what it's like to be a Black student on a predominantly white campus. I'm interested in what it means to be an immigrant body that's traveled from another place and now lives here. All of those are ways to help them start attending to that experience. So tell them what they want to talk about, what is the phenomenon you are interested in, and provide them with potential questions to get them thinking. Now, those potential questions are going to be open-ended and pushing towards narrative and stories. So you want to make sure as you craft those questions, they're questions that are going to help with stories, and we will work on that together. So the telling is that moment, body to body, where you have a conversation. And that actual interview must be audio recorded. How do you relate, connect body to the interviewee will determine the data you receive. How are they reading you? How are they connecting you? How are they seeing your motives? All of that is going to change the story they tell. And that's the thing about doing narrative research. Your body is the vessel collecting information. And so in that way, how your participant responds to you, how that storyteller responds to you is going to impact the story you have. Take notes on their positioning, how they tell your story for the performance. Remember, during that telling, we're audio recording it, but paying attention to the details of how they tell it, as well as writing down our follow-up questions to make sure we have clarification. Be open and attentive. Let the participant choose the time and place as much as you can. Remember, you want to be as open as you can to them, whether this is a Zoom interview or it's on Skype because you can't be face to face. That's absolutely fine. Just let the participant choose when and where as much as they possibly can so that they're comfortable. Again, we're going to provide your questions. Sometimes one interview enough, but you can also do 3. Sometimes people have open-ended conversations first to decide which stories are important and then come back with final questions to get expansions on particular stories. So don't feel like this is a one-shot deal. It's okay to have to go back multiple times. It's okay for a story not to all be told in one sitting. Transcription, creating a text, a transcription of the audio recorded interview. Now, for my research, I get a transcript in its entirety. You're not going to do that for this class. You're only going to be performing a section of that interview, and that's the only part that you'll transcribe. But it is interpretation. Be mindful. Don't paraphrase. It's not how you would tell the story. How did they tell the story? So listen carefully. Be strategic. Decide what portion of that narrative gets at understandings and meanings that you want to share. A shorter section is more impactful, 5 to 8 minutes. That said, if it's a little bit shorter, that's absolutely fine if it's 4 minutes. But you want to make sure, too, that you have gotten at some ideas, which means it might be several excerpts. Right? It might be a few lines from here, a few lines here. Those might be weaved together, but make sure you're not paraphrasing. You're using their verbatim language because that's how we honor that body's story. So attend to their speech pattern, their pauses, their emphases as you're transcribing. Make sure you have a key that you understand those. And remember, It's their body's story. Attend to how they tell it to you. Don't turn this into your own adaptation. We're going to have time for that later, but here is really learning how to listen to the story of a body, honor it, and tell it as they told it. Keep in mind as we're doing the analysis, which is going to be an artist statement, what do we learn about performing and about being human through this story? What insights do we have of this body living in the world of humanity in general, as well as what does it mean to perform the story of someone else? And then how are you going to make this come alive for an audience? How will you hold your body? What's the speech pattern? What are the intended emotions? What are you going to wear? Do you want to do some subtle nods towards them? Don't get an elaborate costume, but some minimalist pieces might help you get into character. For an example, when I'm performing a man, I tend to not wear my hair down. I tend to pull it back in a ponytail. It's a very small thing to do, but it helps me feel a little bit more masculine. It helps me feel that I won't touch my hair during the performance. These are little things you can do to help you get into character, though, of course, no costume is required. You can just perform it as is. This is an important tip, and we're going to go over how to make sure we're doing this well, but honor, don't mock. Give attention to the fact that they are not your body without mocking them. Use subtleties. Don't do a falsetto voice. Don't go so deep that it's distracting. That's not what we're looking for. Honor them. Make them come to life. There's a deep sense of care and commitment to perform their story. I've had students perform stories from my research, and then I've shown them to the research participants, and those participants were so moved because someone cared enough about their story to embody it and tell it well and authentically to an audience. I had a student who did this for a class where she went into the school systems telling a story her mother told her, and her mother cried, saying, I can't believe you honored my story like that and that it's a good enough story to tell other people. So it is really a wonderful honor we're doing to take the attention to transcribe, translate into a performance someone's stories, and then say why the story this body has lived is meaningful. So it's easy to think it'll be fun, just sort of good-naturedly make fun of this person. But we don't want to do that. Always think, if they were here, what would they think of this story I'm telling? And that idea, too, is we don't want to be overly dramatic. We don't want to do anything that would marginalize that body. So be careful while we attend to their speech patterns. We don't want to fall into what could look like a caricature. And we'll have some workshops to think through what that means. Stay mindful about your goals of what we're learning about living through this body and the cultural power that surrounds it. So that's really what the end of your artist statement is going to look at. What do we learn about this body and culture? Last, remember there is a reading, and that reading can be a reading of a script, a reading of your artist statement, but it's also an audience viewing your performance. How are they going to interpret it? Be thinking about that. Are you doing anything that could be misleading or could be hurtful? Remember, because this story now becomes a part of their story of how they understand bodies different or similar to their own. So don't be immobilized, but how should this be addressed? So if you're in a situation like I'm a white person and I'm performing a black person's story, when I do that through my white body, while I will honor their vernacular and speech pattern, I wouldn't put an accent that makes it sound like I am trying to be a race different than my own. I would be careful to not go too far in a way that I am now doing a caricature. For your artist statement, you're going to say why you chose this interview. What are the choices you made creating your script, performance, and the cover image that you're going to have as the thumbnail on your video? What were the challenges? What do we learn about being human? And what do we learn about power relations? And we're going to use external sources to write this very short statement. So go, tell, listen, and analyze. Stories are powerful, and I can't wait to see what you come up with.